What do Carl Jung, medieval priests, astronomers, rebels, and Gen Z all have in common? More than you think. And it begins in Puri, a god with no hands, a festival banned by the British, a rope pulled by rebels and outcasts. This isn't religion, this is resistance dressed as ritual. What if I told you? Rath Yatra isn't just a festival, it's your forgotten reflection, every year. In India, like clockwork but powered by chaos. Something extraordinary happens in the seaside town of Puri, Odisha. Over 2 million people willingly crush themselves into the streets. A ritual so massive, so unapologetically raw, that it turns even the cynical into spectators. 3 giant wooden chariots emerge, groaning, towering, alive. And upon them, not statues, not symbols, but Lord Jagannath, Lord Balabhadra, and Devi Subhadra, dragged, not by kings but by commoners. They say it's devotion, but if you look deeper, if you dare to peel back the layers, this isn't just a festival. It's a revolution in disguise. But behind the noise, the spectacle, and the tradition lies a story even Carl Jung would have recognized. A collective journey into the unconscious, ritualized in wood, rhythm, and devotion. And yet, if you're a skeptical, perhaps nestled in a climate-controlled room halfway across the world, the question echoes like a push notification you never asked for. What's the point? Why celebrate Rath Yatra? And why should you care? Because this isn't just a festival. It's a symbolic hack into the human condition. And yes, even Carl Jung would have pulled that rope. We're about to tear through the rituals, dive headfirst into the myth, the neuroscience, the political rebellion, and the cosmic symphony that is Rath Yatra. First, the chariot is you, a psychological decode. In the Bhagavad Gita, Lord Krishna uses the metaphor of a chariot. The body is the vehicle, the soul the passenger, intellect the charioteer, and the senses the horses. Jung would call it an archetype of the self, the totality of consciousness and the unconscious. But Rath Yatra doesn't just symbolize the journey, it enacts it. But Rath Yatra flips the script. Lord Jagannath, along with Lord Balabhadra and Devi Subhadra, are not commanding the chariot. They are being pulled by the people through the grit, the dust, the imperfection of the real world. This isn't demotion, it's deliberate descent. Carl Jung, the father of analytical psychology, might say this: we're not witnessing a mere procession, but an external projection of the individuation process. The integration of divine and shadow, of temple and street, of sacred and secular. In other words, the gods are not beyond us. They are projections of our inner reality, brought to the surface by symbol, ritual, and collective myth. The gods leave the comfort of sanctums just as we must leave our curated selves to face heartbreak, healing, and hard truths. The chariot is your body. The journey is your becoming. Second, the original reboot, deconstructing the divine. Before the chariots roll, the gods do something few deities across the world are allowed to do. They get sick. Yes, Lord Jagannath, Lord Balabhadra, and Devi Subhadra fall ill and disappear for 15 days. It's called the Anasara period. No one can see them. Priests tend to them in isolation. They are healed with herbal potions. And then, like a plot twist, they return for their grand debut. Jung might compare it to the Nigredo phase in alchemy. Ego death, the necessary darkness before rebirth. But here's what hits you like a divine glitch. Lord Jagannath is unfinished. He has no visible hands or feet. His form is raw. His eyes are large, unblinking. This isn't artistic oversight. It's philosophical subversion. To Jung, this imperfection isn't a flaw. It's the truth. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. The divine is not about flawlessness. The divine is about wholeness, even when incomplete. To a generation wrestling with perfectionism, filters, and imposter syndrome, Lord Jagannath's imperfection is not a liability. It's the message. Third, the festival of rebels and outcasts. Why is Rath Yatra called the festival of rebels and outcasts? Because it breaks every rule religion usually refuses to touch. The name Jagannath literally means Lord of the universe. But the universe in this context isn't run by gatekeepers. Rath Yatra throws open the gates of sanctity. It dismantles caste, creed, and credentials. Anyone can pull the chariot, Brahmin or butcher, priest or agnostic. The divine doesn't hover above the masses. It rolls through them. This ritual frightened colonizers. The British once banned Rath Yatra, calling it a barbaric superstition. Why? Because it disrupted their sense of order. They thought, where Krishna moves, crowds follow. And where crowds gather, revolutions are born. Because it united people across divisions. Because it was too powerful to be dismissed. This isn't religion. This is grassroots divinity. This is God without a gatekeeper. 4. The wheels of the cosmos, a dance with the universe. Think this is just a quaint parade? Think again. Rath Yatra is astronomically aligned. It always begins on the second day of the waxing moon in Ashada, a moment intricately synced with cosmic rhythms. And the deities' chariots rebuilt from scratch every year. The sacred neem trees used for Lord Jagannath, Lord Balabhadra, and Devi Subhadra must be chosen based on 32 secretive conditions, including lunar positions, a cobra near the roots, and wind direction. This is not folklore. This is cosmic calculus. Ancient engineers weren't just architects. They were astronomers, ecologists, and philosophers rolled into one. 5. Neural nirvana. What Rath Yatra does to your brain. Modern neuroscience is finally catching up to what seers always knew. During Rath Yatra, rhythmic chanting, drum beats, and collective movement create theta wave synchrony in the brain, a neural state associated with deep meditation, emotional healing, and spiritual flow. It's the same state monks enter after years of practice. And it's happening in the streets of Puri, in broad daylight, to thousands at once. You don't need belief, you need bandwidth. Rath Yatra bypasses dogma. It plugs directly into your nervous system. 6. Every journey needs a return. And that brings us to the sacred moment of Niladri Bijaya, the final act in the grand spiritual drama of Rath Yatra. After traversing through chaos, crowds, and catharsis, the deities return to the sanctum they once left behind. But their return isn't seamless. It's dramatic. It's ritualized. It's deeply symbol. Just as the self after evolution must reintegrate with the ego, Lord Jagannath must re-enter his temple, but not without resistance. Standing at the gates is goddess Lakshmi, the divine feminine, his consort. And she doesn't make it easy. She denies him entry, questioning his absence. This isn't marital drama, this is mythic psychology. To Carl Jung, Lakshmi is not just a goddess. She is the anima, the archetype of the inner feminine. Her resistance is the psyche's way of demanding balance. The divine masculine must earn re-entry. Through humility, through offering, through love. Only then is the sanctum reopened. Only then does the cycle complete. But no one returns unchanged. Not the gods, not the crowd, not the soul. Niladri Bijaya isn't just the end of a festival. It's the completion of an inner pilgrimage. The return to the self, integrated, softened, whole. If Carl Jung witnessed Niladri Bijaya, he wouldn't merely observe it, he would bow to it. Because it embodies everything he believed. That the journey into the unconscious must end in reintegration. That the divine must descend before it can rise. And that every return requires reconciliation with the self, the shadow, and the sacred feminine. So as the temple doors close, ask yourself, what part of you has made the journey and is now ready to be welcomed home? 7. From Puri to the planet, the global pull of Lord Jagannath. Rath Yatra is no longer confined to Puri. It's celebrated in London, New York, Moscow, Nairobi, and San Francisco. It's not just a tradition, it's a transmission. And here's your linguistic mic drop. The English word juggernaut comes from Lord Jagannath's chariot, an unstoppable, thundering force. Even language had to make space for this momentum, for the skeptic. So why should you care? Because Rath Yatra isn't about converting you, it's about revealing you. It's about the part of you that feels broken, unfinished, unseen, and reminding you that even the gods roll out flawed and unfiltered. It's what happens when faith steps off the pedestal and into the dust, when perfection bows to process, when a god without limbs becomes a metaphor for your fiercest comeback. So the next time you see that colossal chariot, online or in person, don't just swipe past it. Look again. Because Rath Yatra isn't just a festival, it's a mirror, it's a movement. And maybe, just maybe, it's your turn to pull the rope. Because Jung met Jagannath long ago, not in Puri, but in the deepest corridors of the human soul.